There are moments in life when you pray and it feels like the heavens are silent. You pour out your heart, you cry through the night, and still nothing seems to change. The temptation comes to wonder, did God even hear me? But let me tell you, every prayer you've ever whispered in faith has been heard. Every tear that rolled down your cheek was counted. Rise in tone, passion builds, you see. Prayer is not lost, it's planted. The moment you spoke it, heaven began to move. You may not see the roots growing beneath the soil, but something is happening. Something is shifting, because prayer doesn't disappear. It develops. Illustration tone, storytelling rhythm. Think about a seed. When you plant it, you don't see instant fruit. You cover it in dirt, you walk away, and it looks like nothing is happening. But deep down in the dark, transformation is taking place. And so it is with your prayer, unseen, unheard, but unfolding. Emotional rhythm, conviction plus faith. Some of you have been praying for months, even years. You've asked God for breakthrough, for healing, for direction, and you're wondering why it hasn't come yet. But hear this, delay is not denial. God might be preparing the stage before he reveals the scene. He might be building your strength before he brings your success. Shift, deep and reflective when you pray. You're not just speaking words, you're aligning your heart. Prayer doesn't always change the situation. Sometimes it changes you. It takes your worry and replaces it with worship. It takes your panic and turns it into peace. Powerful close, fire plus uplift. So don't stop praying. Don't stop believing. Even when it feels like nothing's moving, keep your trust anchored in the one who never fails. Because when you trust in your prayers, you're really trusting in the God who answers them. Your prayer still works. Your faith still matters. Your miracle is still on the way. So stand tall, speak your faith, and trust in your prayers, because heaven heard you the first time. Your prayer is not lost, it's planted. You see, too many people give up on what they've prayed for, because they don't see immediate results. We live in a world of quick answers, instant replies, and fast food faith. We want to pray today and receive tomorrow. But prayer doesn't always work on your schedule. It works on God's system of growth. Every word you've spoken in faith, every tear you've shed in the dark, every plea that left your lips, none of it has been wasted. It's been planted. When a farmer sows a seed, he doesn't walk away angry when he doesn't see fruit the next morning. He understands that the ground is not ignoring him, it's working for him. The seed is being broken, buried, and prepared for transformation. The soil must cover it, the rain must touch it, the sun must warm it, before life ever rises from that hidden place. And your prayers are the same. The moment you speak them, they go into the soil of heaven. They might look like they've disappeared, but they are only being covered, not forgotten. Some people confuse silence with absence. Just because God hasn't answered yet doesn't mean he hasn't heard. Sometimes the quiet is where the miracle is growing. Sometimes the waiting is where your faith takes root. Because prayer is not a performance to impress God. It's a process that develops you. You're not just sending words into the air. You're sowing faith into eternity. Every time you pray, you release a seed of trust, and the ground of God's promise begins to respond in ways you cannot see. There are things in your life that you've prayed for, and it feels like they vanished into nothing. You prayed for healing, and you still feel pain. You prayed for opportunity, and the door is still closed. You prayed for peace, and the storm is still raging. But just because the seed hasn't surfaced doesn't mean it isn't growing. God hides growth before he reveals glory. If he allowed you to see the process too early, you might pull up what he's still preparing. The seed needs darkness to develop. So does your faith. There will be seasons when you can't trace God's hand, but you must still trust his plan. You may be standing in the soil of uncertainty, wondering if your prayers even matter, but let me tell you, the soil is not your enemy. The soil is your setup. It's the place where hidden miracles begin to form. What you planted in prayer will rise in power. It might take time, it might take tears, it might even take loss, but when the season shifts, you will see that your prayers were never lost. God was working under the surface, orchestrating, aligning, preparing. The harvest that's coming will be greater than the patience it required. So don't let delay make you doubt. Don't let silence make you surrender. When you pray, trust that heaven has already begun to move. The seed has been planted. The ground is already responding. Your job is not to dig it up, but to water it with faith. Keep believing, keep speaking, keep expecting. Because what you sow in prayer will not die in the soil. It will live in God's timing. Your prayer is not lost. It's planted, and in due season, you will see it bloom. Delay is not denial. Those 4 words carry the power to steady your heart when life feels like it's standing still. When you've prayed, believed, and waited, yet nothing seems to happen, you start to wonder if heaven has forgotten your name. You look around and see others stepping into their blessings, others getting their answers, and you ask yourself, what about me? But let me remind you, the delay you're experiencing is not a denial from God. It's a divine pause with a purpose. You see, when God delays, he's not ignoring you, he's preparing you. There are some blessings that would break you if you received them too soon. There are some doors that you're not yet strong enough to walk through. God doesn't just want to give you the promise. He wants to make sure you can keep it once it arrives. The waiting season isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's in the delay that your faith is refined, your patience is tested, and your strength is built. Sometimes God withholds what you're asking for because he's working on something greater behind the scenes. You think you're waiting on the blessing, but the truth is, the blessing is waiting on you to grow into the person who can carry it. Just because the answer hasn't shown up doesn't mean the prayer didn't work. The moment you prayed in faith, heaven marked it. But God is not a fast food deliverer. He's a master builder, and builders take time. Think about construction when a foundation is being laid. There's a lot of digging, a lot of noise, a lot of mess, and nothing beautiful to look at yet. But that's the most important part of the structure. Without that firm foundation, the building can't stand. And in your life, the delay is the digging stage. God is setting your foundation deep so that when the blessing comes, it won't crumble under pressure. There's a story being written about your life, and sometimes, before the next chapter can begin, God has to finish the previous one. You may be ready to move forward, but he's still tying up loose ends you can't see. You're focused on what you want now, but he's focused on what you'll need later. The delay is not about depriving you. It's about developing you. Because when it finally comes, you'll look back and realize that if God had given it to you earlier, you wouldn't have been ready to handle it. Have you ever noticed that sometimes God's not yet is the greatest mercy you could receive. If he had opened that door too soon, it might have destroyed you. If he had answered that prayer in your timing, it might have derailed your destiny. The delay is God's protection wrapped in silence. It's him saying, I've heard you, I'm working for you, but I'm also working ** you. Don't confuse God's silence with his absence, and don't mistake his timing for neglect. A blessing that comes too early can become a burden. So trust the process. Keep praying, keep believing, keep moving forward, even when nothing seems to move for you. Because when the time is right, what's meant for you won't pass you by. Delay is not denial. It's divine timing in disguise. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and thank God for every moment he made you wait, because the blessing that arrives after the wait always carries more weight, more meaning, and more glory than anything you could have rushed. So be still, stay faithful, and remember, just because it hasn't come yet doesn't mean it's not coming. Faith is the bridge between your prayer and its manifestation. You can pray all you want, but if your faith doesn't step onto that bridge, your prayer will never cross over into reality. Prayer speaks it, but faith walks it. Prayer opens your mouth, but faith moves your feet. Too many people pray powerful prayers, yet live like nothing will ever happen. They ask God for miracles, but prepare for disappointment. But when you truly believe, you build a bridge strong enough for your blessing to travel across. Faith doesn't need proof. It creates proof. It doesn't wait to see before it believes. It believes until it sees. Faith says, even when I can't trace his hand, I'll trust his plan. Faith stands tall in the storm and declares, I still believe. Because faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. Feelings change with the wind, but faith stands firm in the fire. Prayer without faith is like writing a letter and never mailing it. It sounds good, but it never reaches its destination. When you pray, you're placing your request before God. But when you believe, you're saying, I know you've already begun to work. Faith doesn't argue with reality. It simply declares that reality is not the final word. You can't just pray for rain and then walk outside without an umbrella. Real faith prepares for what it prayed for. Real faith says, I don't see it yet, but I'm getting ready for it. Faith moves as if the answer is already on its way. Sometimes faith will make you look foolish before it makes you victorious. Noah looked foolish building an ark in the desert. Abraham looked foolish leaving his home without knowing his destination. Joshua looked foolish marching around Jericho instead of fighting it. But faith always looks foolish until it works. And when it does, everybody will see what you were believing for all along. The bridge of faith isn't always smooth. It's built plank by plank with trust, perseverance, and obedience. Every time you choose to believe instead of doubt, another piece of that bridge is laid down. Every time you pray again, even when nothing has changed, another board is nailed into place. Every time you worship while waiting, every time you praise in pain, every time you thank God for what hasn't yet arrived, that's you walking the bridge. That's you refusing to let the gap between prayer and manifestation remain empty. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the courage to move forward in spite of it. It doesn't mean you won't have questions. It means you won't let your questions stop your steps. Because when your faith begins to move, heaven begins to respond. The moment you take a step of belief, something in the unseen world shifts. God honors motion, not emotion. You can cry all you want, but until you believe, nothing changes. So don't just pray, asterisk believe. Asterisk don't just hope, asterisk act like it's done. Asterisk the bridge of faith carries your prayer from the realm of words into the realm of works. You build it through trust, you strengthen it through patience, and you cross it through obedience. Every time you pray, imagine that bridge forming before you. The more you believe, the stronger it becomes. The more you trust, the closer the promise comes. And when your faith and your prayer finally meet in the middle, manifestation happens. Because faith is the bridge, and without it, your prayers never make it to the shore of reality. So keep building, keep believing, keep walking. Your promise is on the other side of your faith. Heaven moves when your heart aligns with your hope. You can say all the right words, pray all the right prayers, and quote all the right scriptures. But if your heart and your hope aren't walking in agreement, heaven stays still. God doesn't respond to empty words. He responds to believing hearts. The power of prayer isn't in the sound of your voice. It's in the posture of your spirit. When your heart believes what your mouth declares, something supernatural begins to shift. Heaven listens to sincerity, not volume. It responds to faith, not formality. There are many people who speak faith but live in fear, who pray for change but still expect disappointment. They say, "Lord, I believe," but inside they're whispering, "I doubt it will ever happen." But the truth is, heaven only moves when your heart and your hope are in sync. When your heart beats with expectation, when your soul agrees with your words, you send out a frequency that heaven recognizes. It's not about reciting prayers, it's about releasing faith. Your heart is the engine of your prayer life. If it's clogged with worry, bitterness, or disbelief, even the most powerful words won't move mountains. The Bible says that faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains not because of its size, but because of its purity. Pure faith, uncorrupted by fear, has power. When your heart is right, your prayer becomes light, and light always travels upward. But when your heart is heavy with doubt, your prayer stays grounded, unable to rise. You have to understand that hope is not wishful thinking, it's confident expectation. Hope says, "I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know who." It anchors your soul in the promises of God, even when the storm is raging. And when that hope connects with a believing heart, heaven takes notice. Because heaven doesn't move on emotion, it moves on alignment. When your internal world matches your declaration, heaven has a foundation to build upon. There are moments when you pray and it feels like your words hit the ceiling and fall back down. But ask yourself, is my heart aligned with my hope? Do I truly believe what I'm asking for? Because the truth is, you can't pray for rain while holding an umbrella of doubt. You can't ask for peace while nurturing chaos in your soul. Your inner world must reflect your spoken faith. When your heart agrees with heaven, your words gain weight. Sometimes God waits for your heart to catch up with your request. He's not withholding the blessing, He's waiting for you to believe you're ready for it. He wants to see faith rooted deep, not just floating on the surface of your emotions. When you pray with full conviction, heaven hears authority in your tone, authority that comes not from your voice, but from your alignment. When your heart aligns with your hope, you stop begging and start believing. You stop asking as a victim and start speaking as a victor. You begin to pray differently, live differently, and expect differently. You no longer say, "if it's possible," but "when it happens." You begin to move with the confidence that what you're believing for is already set in motion. Heaven doesn't move by chance. It moves by connection. When your words, your heart, and your hope all point in the same direction, you create a spiritual current that draws the blessing toward you. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's the moment when your inner faith matches your outer expression. So the next time you pray, don't just say the words feel them. Let them rise from a heart that truly expects heaven to answer. Because when your heart aligns with your hope, heaven can't help but move. Prayer is not informing God, it's transforming you. Too often, we come to God as if He needs an update on our situation, as if He's unaware of our pain, our fears, or our struggles. But God already knows. Before a word ever leaves your mouth, He has heard it in your heart. He doesn't need your prayer to be informed. He invites your prayer so you can be transformed. Prayer isn't about changing God's mind. It's about allowing God to change your heart. When you enter prayer, you step into a divine exchange. You bring your burdens, and He gives you peace. You bring your confusion, and He gives you clarity. You bring your weakness, and He gives you strength. Prayer doesn't always remove the storm, but it changes how you stand in it. Because sometimes God doesn't fix the situation, He fixes you in the situation. The moment you kneel in prayer, you enter a place where your heart begins to shift. You might go into prayer trembling, but you come out standing taller. You might go in empty, but you leave filled. That's the power of transformation. We often treat prayer like a transaction. We ask, we wait, we expect a delivery. But prayer is not about getting something. It's about becoming something. You don't pray to get God on your side. You pray so your heart becomes aligned with His will. True prayer doesn't just change your circumstances. It reshapes your character. It molds your attitude, purifies your motives, and redefines your perspective. When you spend time in prayer, you begin to see things differently. You start to realize that the mountain you've been asking God to move might actually be the mountain He's using to strengthen your climb. You begin to understand that unanswered prayers aren't neglect, they're direction. Prayer opens your spiritual eyes to see that what looked like rejection was actually redirection. What looked like delay was divine preparation. Prayer is the classroom where faith learns patience. It's the furnace where doubt gets burned away. It's the quiet room where your soul finds its voice again. And sometimes you'll discover that prayer doesn't change the people around you. It changes how you love them. It doesn't change the storm. It changes your peace in the middle of it. You'll realize that the true miracle isn't that God makes everything easy, but that He makes you stronger than what you're facing. When you pray deeply, something inside begins to awaken. The weight of the world starts to lose its grip. Worry begins to melt in the fire of worship. You may walk into prayer burdened by anxiety, but you'll walk out carrying assurance. Because prayer is where your weakness meets His strength, your confusion meets His wisdom, your silence meets His stillness. You're not trying to convince God to act, you're allowing Him to reshape your heart, so you can see His hand at work. The more time you spend in prayer, the more you realize it's not about informing heaven. It's about transforming earth through you. You begin to carry peace into chaos, light into darkness, hope into despair. You become an extension of what you've been praying for. The transformation doesn't just happen in your words. It begins to show in your walk, your talk, your attitude, your decisions. Prayer doesn't make life perfect, it makes you prepared. It turns worry into worship, panic into purpose, and fear into faith. Every time you pray, You are being shaped, stretched, and strengthened. So stop thinking you're praying to change God's plan. You're praying so His plan can change you. Because real prayer doesn't just move mountains. It builds the climber. And when you've been transformed through prayer, you no longer beg for miracles, you become one. Don't measure God's timing by your clock. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning that God doesn't operate on our schedule. We are creatures of impatience. We live in a world of deadlines, alarms, and calendars. We want everything now, instant success, instant healing, instant answers. But God doesn't rush purpose. He doesn't move according to the ticking of a human clock. His timing is divine, deliberate, and often disguised. When He delays, it's not because He's forgotten. It's because He's preparing something worth waiting for. There are moments when you look at your life and wonder, why is it taking so long? You've prayed, you've believed, you've done everything you know to do, yet nothing seems to move. It feels like the promise is stuck in traffic. But let me tell you, the delay doesn't mean denial. It simply means God is still arranging the details. Sometimes what you're praying for requires the right people, the right place, and the right moment to come together. And only God knows when all those pieces fit perfectly. If God gave you everything you wanted when you wanted it, it might destroy you instead of bless you. There are seasons when He's not saying no. He's saying not yet. Because He sees what you can't. He knows what you're ready for and what you're not. He knows that premature blessings can become permanent burdens. That's why He withholds some things until your character matches your calling, until your spirit is strong enough to sustain the success He's sending your way. When you try to rush God, you end up carrying what you weren't meant to handle yet. The weight feels heavier, the road feels longer, and the blessing feels bitter. But when you wait for His timing, everything flows. The doors open with ease, the connections feel divine, and the peace that comes with it tells you, this is God's moment. Because when God does it, you don't have to force it. His timing carries its own confirmation. There are countless examples of people in Scripture who had to wait. Abraham waited 25 years for a son. Joseph waited 13 years in prison before stepping into his destiny. David was anointed king but had to wait years before he wore the crown. Every one of them could have said, God, this is taking too long. But they learned that waiting on God is never wasted time. It's the place where faith matures, patience grows, and trust deepens. Waiting is not a punishment, it's a process. God uses waiting to refine your motives and to test your endurance. He's not just working on what you asked for, He's working on you. Asterisk because when the blessing comes, you'll need more than excitement, you'll need maturity, wisdom, and humility to hold it. The waiting season is where God equips you for the weight of what's coming. So stop looking at your watch and start looking at His Word. Stop counting the days and start trusting His ways. God doesn't live in time, time lives in Him. He's never early, never late, but always right on time. And when His timing arrives, everything that seemed delayed will make perfect sense. One day you'll look back and realize why He made you wait. You'll see how the delay protected you, how it prepared you, how it positioned you. You'll thank Him not just for what He gave you, but for when He gave it to you. Because when it finally happens in God's timing, it won't just be right, it'll be perfect. So don't measure your miracle by your clock, measure it by your faith. God's timing isn't slow, it's strategic, and when your moment comes, No force on earth can stop it.